Recently, the chief exorcist at the Vatican reported that the devil was in the Vatican.
Morgan.
Wolf, Reverend Gabriele Amorth made headlines around the world recently when he said the devil was present in the Vatican.
You're talking about something very real, aren't you?
Certo, realissima. Dico, se credete al Vangelo, credete all'esistenza del demonio.
Absolutely, very real.
As to the devil's presence in the Vatican, he says that's no surprise. He once had to perform an exorcism on another exorcist.
The first thing we need to do if we're going to find out if the devil is at the Vatican is take a tour underneath the Vatican. As we arrive underneath the Vatican, we see that it is laid out in a number of rooms marked by letters, as we could see in this aerial view map. Now we will be exploring some of the rooms in this map. Let's start off by looking in room C here. As we look into the room, we see that this is a mausoleum of Lucius Tullius Zethus. The Vatican goes on and explains that this room was used for offerings to the dead. We read, "View of the north wall and mosaic floor. In the corners of the mosaic floor there are 8 marble squares with circular holes through which offerings to the dead were poured during the funeral rites carried out in the burial chamber." So here we have a room where offerings are done to the dead. That's pretty common in Catholicism. Now if we look in the next room, room E, so here in this room they have a vase which has the image of a Medusa. So here underneath the Vatican we have a Medusa. Again, we ask ourselves the question, this is a vase, but yet it's kept underneath the Vatican. This could have easily been removed. If the Vatican was a holy church, you would think that they would have done this. You think underneath the Vatican they would have things that are sacred to Christ and not foreign gods, not idols and images of foreign gods. Now as we move down further to room H, here we see that this is a mausoleum that is one of the largest and most luxurious mausoleums underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. It says that it was built at the beginning of the second half of the 2nd century during the reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius and belonging to a freedman of the important Valeri family. And as we're in this mausoleum, we see that there's lots of idols from the old Roman Empire. We ask ourselves, why does Rome keep these idols down underneath St. Peter's Basilica? You would think if they were Christians, they would want to clean all this out. I can't imagine anybody who has a true church would keep idols in their churches, especially pagan idols left over from a bygone pagan era. But here we have the Vatican keeping many pagan idols underneath St. Peter's Basilica. Here is an idol the Vatican is displaying of a head of a child in gilded stucco and a lock of a hair typical of one initiated into the cult of Isis. And this particular idol is an idol of a boy who was initiated into the cult of Isis. If we look in this room, we see that some of the stucco decorating the walls. Here we have a personification of Oceanus. You remember the New Testament book of Revelation says that a beast comes out of the ocean. And so we say, why is the Vatican having these foreign gods underneath its basilica? Why is it protecting them? If it was a true church, it couldn't be doing it for the sake of art, especially with all the evil things that are happening in the Vatican. And as the priest earlier said, that evil does exist, the devil is real, as he admitted. But the hypocrisy of all of this is that they have all these evil images and idols underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. We also see 2 figures of genuses with bat wings also portrayed on the walls. Again, this is supposed to be a holy church and a holy place. Now this is supposedly all there for many, many years. As we move into the next room, room I, the details of the mosaic floor with Mercury and Pluto's chariot, they go on and explain that this theme is an explicit reference to the overcoming of death and the return of the afterlife. They describe it as a splendid mosaic floor of Mercury is depicted carrying a caduceus with wings at his ankles, walking in front, and a chariot carrying Pluto and his wife Persephone. So here we have all these Roman gods underneath the Vatican, images of foreign gods. Well, as we move to the next room, we find out why they keep all these idols down there in these images. As we move to room U, here we find the shock of all shocks. Here on the wall, it says there is a depiction of Lucifer, that is, the light bearer, the morning star. On the opposite of the wall, there is a drawing of Vesper, the evening star, cosmic symbol of the human life cycle. We find out that when we get to room U, here we have a clear depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. We ask ourselves, why are they keeping this image of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Again, you would think if you're a Christian church, you would not want to have any of these images.
Let me show you. The U.S. gives China eminent domain over our U.S. property. So we do have to go back in time, people, okay? Of the 08, 09, these things, these take steps. Everything that they do takes decades to put together. So we're in these, I wouldn't say the final thrones of it, but it's certainly not looking good, not boding well for America. Now, I don't know where Trump sits on this, okay? This is done between the Clintons and China. So they are definitely guilty there. So let's connect some dots today, boys and girls, to learn about the highest possible treason that has happened in this country. This is February 09, okay? This is as real and as ugly as it can get. Number one, China begins its covert war on the free American Republic in the 1950s by taking over much of the pharmaceutical drug manufacturing for American and British Big Pharma. Woo! I did not know that, people. That explains the over 100,000 Americans who die every year from taking their pharmaceuticals properly. And the whole pharmaceutical company, over 250,000 die from just Big Pharma altogether, okay, the medical services and all of that. So this is an outgrowth of the Rothschilds opium ring processing, there you go, by the British West Indies Company during the 1800s. Yes, things have not stopped. And it's brokered by the City of London and Washington, D.C. Number two, arch-illuminist and Satanist Henry Kissinger, whom Putin claims is his best buddy, normalizes trade relations with China during the Nixon years. Again, it takes decades to do this goal of destroying America from the inside out. Number three, eventual LDS Mormon Church, Hinckley, via the church-owned Polynesian Cultural Center in Hawaii, establishes a hard currency pipeline with Beijing. exchanging bank trade credits for CIA British M16 drug services rendered into hard gold and silver, while hiding behind the cloak of world religion. This is facilitated by the LDS Church built and controlled the Xinjiang Special Economic Zone adjacent to Hong Kong. So when Hickley is made LDS president, his first official visit as world prophet is to China, where the Chinese communist leaders give him a hero's welcome and a confetti parade. Number 4, Arkansas natives Bill Clinton and Sam Walton massively increased contracts with China's factories over 2,000%. This results in a tremendous imbalance of trade with China. Thanks to the Mormons' special economic zone, China's communist leaders began amassing incredible real wealth in gold and silver. Number 5, China purchases trillions. Here's what really screwed us up. It was all deliberate. China purchases trillions of dollars worth of U.S. Treasury bills and bonds, paying for it with gold and silver provided by the Xinjiang Economic Zone Exchange. I'm sure I said it wrong. Much of the U.S. national debt is purchased from the private Federal Reserve banks in this manner. Number 7, December 2005, Chinese Defense Minister Chai Haoten delivers a speech to the Chinese military leaders outlining the inevitable expansion of China into Canada, the U.S., and Australia. This is 05. He justifies this because of Chinese radical superiority and thus eminent domain. To accomplish this, Americans would first have to be cleansed by means of a powerful biological weapon, causing 150 to 200 million American deaths. Yeah, what they're doing in California is not a sweet thing. Okay, they're getting rid of the Americans. China is coming in to take California over. The plan would be enacted after the symbolic Olympic Games, beginning at the sacred day of 888. That's interesting. Are concluded. China begins buying oil and gas futures, spiking the worldwide prices to historic levels. Number 8, March 13th, 3/13, 2008, a secret meeting is conducted for the U.S. House and Senate. Agents of the Club of Rome give a preview of upcoming events to elected officials who first swear an oath of secrecy. The traitors are briefed that the economy, here it is, will begin its collapse, all by design, in October 2008 and will totally collapse in mid-2009. As events unfold in 2009 and 10, which I was severely attacked in 09. I mean, there was definitely something going on there. They claimed that we had an AI come back through time travel and create Bitcoin. I don't know, but something strange about 09. I have to say, we could have been visited by some dark force of some kind. I mean, it was brutal what I went through. So as events unfolded in 2009 and 10, Congress was told of the real possibility of massive civil unrest and even civil war being waged. Detention camps constructed to imprison civil agitators. Number 9, in September 2008, as soon as the Olympics are concluded, China stops buying oil and gas futures while dumping U.S. Treasury bills and bonds. Gasoline prices plummet while the U.S. mortgage loan money becomes tightly constricted. Wasn't that 2008, our housing crisis? Was that 2008? Did I get that wrong? It might have been 2004. So the Club of Rome's agenda is being implemented perfectly. Yes. Number 10, in October, just as explained in March, the economy indeed begins its collapse, with mortgage banks going bankrupt as the Chinese dump their U.S. securities. This causes a worldwide rush to liquidity as money supplies dramatically tighten. I'm also going to bring to you the Russian side of how much property they own in our country too, okay? It gives you a better idea. So number 11, billions of worthless U.S. government bailout debt entries are given to bolster failing U.S. banks. These are worthless because China now controls most of the U.S. real wealth in the form of gold and silver. China refuses to continue investing credit loans to the U.S. Treasury. Number 12, Barack Obama is elected, promising change you can believe in to screw over America. Thank you. After taking office in January, Obama sends Hillary Clinton on a critical mission to China and helps write H.R. 45, a complete grab of America's guns. Ally Adolf Hitler, state leaders who understand what Clinton and Obama agenda with China is about, and they are seeking legal sovereignty to prevent the loss of property to a foreign power. Now here's the enchilada number 13. China agrees to continue investing in U.S. Treasury bills only after securing the right of eminent domain to physically repossess foreclosed American private property. Think about the storm sales. Think about the 600 acres that China just bought in Texas, too, through the storm sales, most likely. That's why I was saying you got to be careful who you were selling your property to. It's China. So, foreclosed American private property. This move is the equivalent of an unconstitutional surrender following a bloody war. This also gives the Chinese military the legal right to use biological weaponry to clean up America all at once. It gives them the legal right to use deadly force in removing trespassing Americans from occupying Chinese real estate. Hence, the fires in California right now. It gives them the right to use deadly force to get you off their property. Connect these 13 evil dots, and this is what you get. So anyway, the feds grant eminent domain as collateral to China for U.S. debt. Sources at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, China, have just confirmed that the United States of America has tendered to China a written agreement which grants to the People's Republic of China an option to exercise eminent domain within the U.S. as collateral for China's continued purchase of U.S. Treasury notes and existing U.S. currency reserves. The written agreement was brought to Beijing by Secretary, you got it, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton the traitor, and was formalized and agreed to during her recent trip to China. This means that in the event the U.S. government defaults on its financial obligations to China, the Communist government of China would be permitted to physically take inside of the USA land, buildings, factories, and perhaps even entire cities to satisfy the financial obligations of the U.S. government. Put simply, the feds have now actually mortgaged the physical land and property of all citizens and businesses in the United States. They've given it to a foreign power, their constitutional power, to take all of our property as actual collateral for continued Chinese funding of U.S. deficit spending and the continuing carrying of the U.S. national debt. This is an unimaginable betrayal of every man, woman, and child in the USA, an outrage worthy of violent overthrow. I want to show you where they actually took over Hawaii and California. Eminent domain is the power of the government to take private property for public use. This happened too, without the consent of the property owner. Under our Constitution, the government can only take when providing just compensation for what they've taken. But who decides what is just compensation? All right, so I need to get into this part. The U.S. goes belly up, and China comes in and says they owed us $2 trillion in Treasury notes and another $2 trillion in actual cash money, which is now worthless. And we are taking the entire state. I'm going to end it right here. Well, almost. We are taking the entire state of Hawaii and the entire state of California in lieu of this bad debt. With the stroke of a Chinese chopstick, Hawaii and California, all the land and the buildings in those states are now owned by China. Okay, there you go. Now, real quick, because this is getting lengthy, Chinagate. Chinagate is about selling our technology through the Clinton Foundation to the Chinese. Okay, and you know what I don't like about what's going on with this is the fact that if the one thing about that Paul Begley interview that got my attention, that if it was being used as predictive programming, in the end of the article he says, well, The NSA guy is saying we have to spend billions of dollars on our technology because we're so far behind, when in fact we are creating technology and giving it to all these countries. So it's just another way, guys, to increase our debt so China can take more of the land. That's how they're doing it. The deeper in debt, the more land China owns in America. And you're going to see that Russia owns a lot as well. So lest we forget Chinagate, the most serious scandal in the U.S. history. Well, it's neck and neck. I'm just going to show you real quick. The Chinagate funding scandal plagued in the 1996 Bill Clinton-Al Gore campaign. Yes, it goes back in time. It involves the transfer of America's most sensitive technology, including but not limited to nuclear missiles, satellite technology, and apparently in exchange for millions of dollars in contributions to the 1996 Clinton-Gore re-election effort and the Democratic National Committee. Yeah, the Chinagate scandal of 96 ended up in an award of $900,000 in attorney fees and costs to Judicial Watch 10 years later.
Post-event possibilities. The following information is presented as a possible series of events based on inside information and is not being declared as the actual plans or results of the event. Humanity collectively will determine our future, and the possibilities are limitless. The sudden drastic changes of the event will bring turmoil to some and relief to others. The weeping and gnashing of teeth by many is to be expected, but we are strong and we must pick up the pieces of our shattered beliefs and realities.
I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. We're going to go off the beaten path today, way off the beaten path. We're going to go down to Antarctica. I know it sounds bizarre, but a lot of people been going to Antarctica. Big, important people. They've been going to Antarctica recently. They have been going to Antarctica ever since, well, the very beginning of President Obama's very first term. And I compiled a list of headlines for you, so we can anchor this in some reality before we get into a reality and introduce our guest. And I just want to start with this headline. Obama sends Biden on special mission to Antarctica. Look at the date, Huffington Post, 1/22/09. Right after he is inaugurated, for the very first time, President Obama sends Vice President Biden to Antarctica. Don't you think that's bizarre? And now we fast forward to John Kerry, the Secretary of State. John Kerry's Antarctic visit highlights continent and climate policies under threat. That's in New York Times, 11/15/16. This was election day. The date is the date of the article, but this was election day. He was asked all kinds of questions about it. It was very squirmy on it, very Weasley. Didn't really want to give a lot. Wanted to just talk about climate change. 11/15/16, Putin to visit Antarctica. This is the Moscow Times, 1/18/17. Patriarch Kirill, this is the Russian Pope. This is after the first meeting of the Roman Catholic Pope Francis, and they haven't met in 1,000 years. Patriarch Kirill meets penguins at Russian base as he becomes first Orthodox leader to visit Antarctica. That's the Daily Telegraph, or the Telegraph in 2016. Secret Nazi military base discovered by Russian scientists in the Arctic. This is the UK Independent. This is something equivalent to, the New York Times or Washington Post. secret Nazi military base discovered by Russian scientists in the Arctic. And this is in the Independent. And then let's just go over here. This is the Governor General's historic visit to Antarctica. This is the Governor General of Australia, February 4th, 2013. And last but not least, Buzz Aldrin, who is a Freemason, is medically evacuated from where? Antarctica. Listen, Antarctica is not on the way to anywhere. You know, the president can't, fly to the Middle East and say, oh, I think I'll stop off in Germany.
Ultiem geworden. Maar dat is allemaal omdat de mensen, zeg maar, niet opstaan. Nee. Niet beseffen wat de werkelijkheid is.
En geprogrammeerd zijn, want durf maar eens te zeggen dat je tegen het sionisme bent. Dan ben je antisemiet, dan ben je... dat proberen ze...
Het negatieve, je mag zeggen het kwaad, het Luciferiaanse, het satanisme, hoe je het wil noemen. Het is een werkelijke entiteit. Ik ben werkelijk erachter gekomen dat wat ook in zo'n Bijbel staat, en het staat niet alleen in de Bijbel, het staat in zoveel boeken. Er is werkelijk een shift geweest, een afscheiding geweest van de lichtmanifestatie. Waarin eigenlijk een club voor zichzelf is begonnen. En een haat, een intense haat heeft. Een kwaadheid heeft. Die maar heel weinig mensen werkelijk op waarde durven in te schatten. Want het is een allesvernietigende kracht die ons haat. Ja. Die haat de schepping, die haat het leven. En zal er ook alles aan doen om ons mensen te vernietigen. En hoe doe je dat? Door ze uit elkaar te houden. Verdeel en heers, dat klopt. De mensheid is namelijk de manifestatie van het licht. Dat is de werkelijke creatie. Zolang je die maar gescheiden houdt in allerlei zaken, zoals politieke partijen, kleurtjes waar we op afgerekend worden, noem alles maar op. Dan zorg je ervoor dat jouw grootste vijand, vanuit het Luciferiaans gezien, niet tot zijn volle potentie komt, niet tot zijn volle kracht komt. Niet kan gaan staan, want op het moment dat dat gebeurt, dan verdwijnt het. Dan verdwijnt die hele brulboei, dat monster, het monster van meer, die verdwijnt.
Involving the Clintons. Here's everything you need to know when it comes to America's most corrupt political family. No rules apply, no laws exist, ethics do not matter. Hillary Clinton rigged the Democratic primary to stop Bernie Sanders. She robbed him blind. The fix was in. Hillary Clinton actually colluded with Russia by paying, millions and millions of dollars for that fake news dossier, Russian propaganda, Russian collusion to smear Donald Trump. And she tried to influence you, the American people, to swing the election with those lies. The fix was in. James Comey changed the announcement about Clinton's private email server even after her team deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, destroyed some of them by using acid wash, known as bleach bit, and even taking a hammer to BlackBerries. The fix was in. Bill Clinton met with former Attorney General Loretta Lynch on tarmac in an airport for 40 minutes, only days before Comey's decision. Are we really to believe all they talked about was their grandkids? The fix was in. Then there's the corrupt Uranium One deal. Millions of dollars pour into the Clinton Foundation and Bill and Hillary's pocket. She's the Secretary of State. She approved this agreement, one of 9 people. And, of course, all while Bill is doubling his speaking fees in Moscow and, by the way, trying to meet with nuclear officials in Russia. And he did meet with Vladimir Putin. And there's also the massive plot that the FBI uncovered 1 year before that deal was approved, which includes bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks, racketeering. Key members of the Obama administration knew this was happening, including Mueller and Eric Holder. Yet they decided to give 20% of America's uranium to Russia and to Putin. The fix was in.